Okay, so just to finish up, I'm going to talk about, I suppose, not only can we choose to make the right decision or do the right thing in terms of our individual choices, we can do that in a bit of a broader sense as well, in that we can choose who we are. So this is very much linked to the idea of identity. So I suppose who we are, or what identity is really, it's, I suppose, our understanding of who we are, or it's the narrative and story we tell ourselves, about who we are. And so we've got lots of different types of identities, but kind of two important ones are, one, we've got a personal identity. And a personal identity is our understanding of ourselves in terms of our attributes or our skills or traits, so to speak. So we might think of ourselves as outgoing, or we might see ourselves as kind, or we might describe ourselves as hardworking or particularly happy, or maybe we see ourselves as an anxious person. A second type of identity that we have, though, is what's called our social identity. And our social identity is very much linked into our roles in life. So, for example, I've got multiple roles in my life. So I am a son, I'm a psychologist, I'm a brother, I'm a partner, I'm a coach, I'm a speaker. And in the past, I've played roles like I've been the best man. And what's interesting about this is we can play those roles well, or we can play them badly. So we can be a good son, or we can be a bad son. We can be a good psychologist or a bad brother, or a good partner or a bad coach. Or we can be a good speaker, or in the case of being a best man, we can be a good best man or a bad best man. So what has all this got to do with meaning? Well, first off, when we consider where identity comes from, so it turns out our identity, it's something that we actually learn, and how we learn our identity is through our experience of ourselves. We learn who we are, I suppose, by looking at what it is that we do. So we look at our own behaviors, our own habits, the things that we've achieved, and from that we decide, I suppose, who we are to an extent. So for example, I used to work as a bartender back in the day, and as a result, I identified as a bartender because I would do bartender things in my job. My social life was very much based around being a bartender, so I identified as a bartender. What's interesting about this is because we part of our identity is based on our behavior, it means that we can change it, because if we change our behavior, that means we can change our identity. So for example, I identify as a psychologist now because I do things that psychologists do. So for example, I do talks on psychological topics, or I work one-on-one with clients. And so what's nice about this kind of social identity in these roles is we can change our identity, we can change our roles by changing our behavior. So what's this got to do with meaning? Well, it turns out that we can find a lot of meaning by playing these roles really, really well. So for example, a role I played a couple of years ago, as I was saying earlier, was I played the role of best man at my brother's wedding. And this was one of the more meaningful experiences in my life. And part of the reason that this was meaningful is that I felt I played the role well. I suppose I did a speech. Everyone seemed to have a laugh and enjoy it. The bride cried, but in a good way. You know, I drank a little, but not too much. You know, I felt I played the role well. Yeah. And so as a result, that was very, very meaningful for me. So in terms of how we can, if I suppose we can have meaning by playing a role well, this puts forward that we can increase the level of meaning we have by playing our roles better. And how we play our roles better, how do we improve? We improve by changing our behaviors or doing our behaviors more often. So for example, when I learn a new coaching technique or learn a new bit of psychological theory, which makes me a better coaching psychologist, then it's meaningful because I'm becoming a better psychologist. If I learn a new speaking technique or if I practice a talk, it's meaningful because I'm becoming a better speaker. If I spend time with my family or spend time with my friends, it's meaningful because I'm becoming a better brother or a son or becoming a better friend. And if I learn skills in terms of how to reduce conflict, it's meaningful for me because I'm becoming a better partner. So I'll leave you with this idea that we can find meaning as playing a role well. And what I'd like you to do is take a minute, maybe you can let me know in the chat box if you'd like, but I think maybe take a pen and a piece of paper. And if you can identify a key role in your life. So we all have multiple roles, maybe just pick one. So maybe a key role in your life is, got to do with your personal relations. Maybe you're a father or a brother or a son or a daughter or a wife or a mother. Or maybe a key role in your life is maybe got to do with your profession, whatever it is you do for a living. Or maybe a key role in your life is your partner. So once you've identified that role, I want you to just take a minute and I want you to write down a couple of things that a person who plays that role really, really well would do. So for example, I'll use the example of a partner. And for me, what a good partner does, or a person who plays that role really, really well would do, is they spend quality time with their partner. Maybe they listen to them, maybe they encourage them, maybe they give them the odd shoulder. And a final question, what's one thing you can do in the next 24 hours to play that role a little better?